of all, to share for people listening more context about you, because we will be covering like a lot in this conversation. I want to share I want to read some things, some of my notes that I wrote as I was like going through your stuff, like through your Instagram page and through your web page for Visual Flow Analytics. So you're the founder of Visual Flow Analytics. And these are the interesting things. You have generated over 20 million. I am guessing that is in dollars.
It's basically
in revenue for clients.
So it's the money they've generated with me working the company for them, with my services. It's not me personally. I'm not worth $20 million. I just want to make that clear. Okay. But I've helped them. I've helped them generate over $20 million.
Yeah, it's the change that they have like had in their businesses because of hiring you and working with you.
Yes, kind of, but unfortunately in most of the companies I was not able to track that in terms of confidential data. I couldn't go that granular into the data, so I just took the revenue they were making, and I know that I helped operating basically as their entire backend, especially for one company in South Africa that I've helped a lot. So that's why I generated over $20 million for our clients. But I just want to make that clear. It's not me personally.
Sure. No, that's understood. Then you deliver AI-powered data infrastructure that transforms data into growth. And that is similar to, well, no, not similar. That has to do with what we were talking about regarding business intelligence and using data for business improvement. So that's another thing regarding your agency. And then this was another interesting part to me, that you worked at Pratt & Whitney, which I had no idea about until I researched, and I saw that they are an aerospace manufacturer, which is like a great thing. And especially, I think something interesting to talk about here will be to get into the details of, well, you haven't like graduated from university. We were just talking about that before recording, and still you were working in this company, and then you are currently doing these things for businesses. And so that's like an initial break, that's an initial way to break the thought pattern of people of like, for things like that you need to be like a graduated engineer or like to be in the STEM space. And so those are some interesting things that I have like researched about what you do and like your business, which I think provides some foundational context to begin the conversation from. And also I think like from what we have been sharing as we've met each other, like I think we're similar in many different ways. Like you started like getting into entrepreneurship because of this like actually through these business models that you usually see like influencers share, so like dropshipping or like trading or these things, and so that led you eventually to build your own path. So that's one thing. Then you are also into STEM. You love maths. I enjoy STEM a lot too. Like I would say I'm more into physics than into maths, but I mean they are
related,
very attached to each other. Yeah, they're very related. So that's interesting. And so this with this initial context, I would like you to start like sharing how you got into what you're currently doing. So like into creating Visual Flow Analytics and what you do from this like passion that you have for maths. So how was that journey and process for you?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, when I used to be in high school, I was not having good grades. I was having like okay grades, but like not good grades besides in math. However, always found like a really deep interest in math because I like the fact that it's binary in terms of answers, right? You're either right or wrong. It's not as the same as in history or when you're writing an essay or when this and that, where there's like the grading system is much more subjective to the person that's grading it. What I liked about math, it's really universal. It's a universal language, and it's really binary, very logic. So for me, it completely clicked. But I used to have really bad grades in math when I was like back in when I was like around 12 years old. I was having like 4 out of 20, which is really really bad grades. Yeah, the teacher was writing as commentaries on my sheets. William is in free dive in free skydiving, and he has apparently not opened his parachute. Like crazy commentaries on my and my parents were not happy about that. And one summer, it was before entering high school, I was like, okay, I'm having like shitty grades in math. I'm really gonna work only this subject, because I really like it. And so that was the switch for me where I became like pretty good at math, because I spent my entire summer just hustling on math. I redid the entire program plus the new one that was coming up. So that allowed me to gain to get a bit ahead. And yeah, writing to McGill University, I was like, okay, I'm really interested about math. But once I arrived to McGill, I also realized, I'm interested about entrepreneurship. And just doing math and entrepreneurship, it doesn't really go together, and then I don't want to have stereotypes or whatever, but the people in science, where I was to be, like my faculty, the people in math, especially like in science and especially in math, tend to be more more shy, more reserved, and really focused. And when they solve a problem, it's not necessarily for a business use case. So that's that some people, they're really good technical, and sometimes they build stuff, but that doesn't help anyone or anybody out there. I know people that are really smart. They created this incredible app, they told me, to help people find squash partners. Okay, well, it's nice, but in Montreal, I don't think there's a big need for that. So I was like, okay, there's a gap between the guy that wants to be really technical, that I want it to be, right, and the business side where I want to get into entrepreneurship and I want to understand more about business. And I think that switched in me where I was like, okay, the bachelor is not it. Okay, the skills I'm learning, it's nice, but it's not everything. I need to be what people tend to call street smart, right?
Street smart,
100%. And so that's why I started like studying less and less in university, and starting building things on the side. So I got a bit into dropshipping, a bit into cryptocurrency, but then I was really big into web developing. And actually, I was coding a lot in Next.js. It's a framework. It's
I think I know.
Okay, yeah, it's a Next.js, Tailwind CSS. It's a really nice tech stack if you want to build elegant and modern and responsive websites. So I did that. I started an agency that usually, before, was called Visual Flow Agency instead of Visual Flow Analytics, and I used to sell websites. And fun fact. The first client I got for this web agency, it was can I say all kind of stuff on the podcast?
No, yeah, okay. You can. Like I love to keep it as authentic as possible.
Okay, because I don't want you to get into any restrictions or I don't know. But okay, it's nothing too crazy. But so I was trying to niche down, so calling only massage salons, people that were doing massage, spas, et compagnie, etc. So I called 200 phone numbers of local businesses in Montreal. Only 2 answered. The first one told me no. The second one told me, okay, come to my office. We're going to discuss it. I went. It was like 1 hour away of metro, etc. to get there. Once I arrived there, it was in the middle of nowhere. I entered in the salon, and the lady that opened the door, she had a strange dress. Okay, let's put it that way. And so I entered. I was like, okay, this is a bit weird. Are you the lady from the massage? Yes, it's me. I was like, okay, so I'm looking to do a website. She was like, yeah, actually, I would need 2 websites. One for normal massages, and a second one for special massages. And I was really dumb at the moment because I didn't want, it was business. So I was really like business oriented. I was like, what do you mean by a special massage? She was like, massage that are a bit special, you know what I mean? And I still played dumb. I was like, no, I don't understand. What do you mean by... Then she told me that it was a massage with a happy ending. So it was crazy because, I signed her. It was $400. It was not a lot of money because it was my first customer, but I basically had to design 2 websites. One for her massage that were only normal, and the other websites for special massages where I had to put pictures of the models, etc. She asked me to take picture of the models. I told her, no, I'm not going to do that. You take the picture, send it to me. But the website I created for her special massage, it looked like a porn site. It's terrible, like really. And so that was my first client and last client with the agency. And as you might have guessed it, I cannot put that in my portfolio, right? It's not that relevant.
Yeah, I was guessing.
But and then I stopped. I went into I started my internship at Pratt and Whitney, and I worked there for. I actually now I still work there, even though I'm not in university, which is the thing that I want to discuss with you after that you mentioned it. Like you don't necessarily need to be in the in the typical university path, etc., to get these kind of jobs, even though it's harder if you don't that 100%. But anyways, yeah, so I got into data analytics with that internship, and I was like, okay, everything that they do, it's really important. Their business, I don't know how it's running. It's so messy. The data they use, it's really messy. There's a lot of opportunity with huge corporations that have huge amount of data, but it's not written for the business. The data is not organized well enough, and it's not showing the right metrics. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start this business on my own. I first started as a consultant, and now I've niched down with a very specific offer for trucking companies in logistics. Where I really like actually tomorrow I have an important meeting with a logistic company, trucking company here in Montreal. They do between $50 to $100 million annually. So I'm going to meet there because I talked to him. I talked to him about this interim system productized that I've created for trucking companies. It's basically between data, between AI systems, automations to really optimize the trucking industry. And he's really interested. So tomorrow I'm gonna pitch him the idea, and also to his team. He wants me to present it to his team. So yeah, that's going to be an important call. But yeah, anyways, that's where that was a bit my path. Started first as a data analytics consultant, more in the business intelligence side. Then really getting into more the AI stuff, predictive analytics, and not AI using AI, but actually building the predictive models. I mean, still with AI, but like understanding the logic behind it. And yeah, that's how I finally got into niching down into trucking companies, the trucking industry, and having really an offer that I crafted also with the logic of Alex Hormozy, which helped me a lot. Jose talked about it, I think, as well. He probably mentioned it.
Yeah, we didn't get into a lot of detail into that, but we can right now, so that people listening can also learn about that. I like the stories that you shared. I guess that if this was to be used for a clickbait thing, it would be like how building websites for massage with happy ending companies and internships at aerospace manufacturer companies led to helping trucking companies optimize their business or something like that, like very unrelated things that led to another thing, which is what you are currently doing. And with this, also one other important point that I think is worth mentioning, and that's also credits to you, which is that I think this is one of many stories that exist and that are not usually talked about people who are doing businesses in non-sexy industries.
Yeah,
so it's like optimizing through maths and technology the trucking industry, which is something that you don't hear the online gurus and these people talk about. They always talk about drop shipping or I don't know, e-commerce or building courses or content creation or things like that, which are more friendly to most people who are not into the technical aspect of a service, which is the reason why also it's a very big advantage to have this technical things. And that's also why I chose for university not to go straight into business, because it's I think it's more valuable for a business to be technical and to have this very technical and specific skills and knowledge to then use that, which is basically what you're doing. I would like you to share how you got this internship, because I think that's something valuable for people who might be, I don't know, studying something non-STEM related, so not science, technology, engineering, maths, whatever, and that might want to get into something like that. How was your path to get into that internship? And yeah, what would you suggest for people to be able to get something like that? Maybe if it's not that complex, but something like some levels lower.
Absolutely. To get into my internship, actually, I've applied to a lot of internship because I had a really bad GPA in university. I had around 2 out of 4, which is really bad. It's the worst you can have at Miguel, because below that, you're in unsatisfactory standings. So the minimum I could have is 2, so I got 2. And to find an internship with a 2.0 GPA, you have to go all in on all the rest. And even in most of the cases, it's it's done. You're cooked. So I applied to lots of internships. And the thing is, I have the girlfriend of my uncle here in Montreal. She works at Pratt & Whitney, and she told me, "Oh, you should apply to some internships there, and I'll tell them about you." So I was like, "Okay, yes." I applied to 10 internships at Pratt & Whitney. 9 of them they told me no, and the last one they told me, "Okay, we'll give you an interview." And during the interview, I was really authentic. And really authentic. I mean, also I sold a competence, skills that I didn't have, but I still sold them, you know. And I'm big also on
like what?
So it was a data internship, a data analytics internship. I didn't know anything about data. I didn't even know the softwares, and they were talking about me from some softwares. I was like, yeah, Power BI, it's a really great tool for a business intelligence, though it's a bit limited on some aspects, because in terms of the ETL, like stuff I read like literally 5 minutes ago. And since sometimes the people that hire you, like there were like no technical people in the call, they were like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense." And then I talked a lot actually about entrepreneurship, and my manager, he really liked that. And at the end of the call, he directly told me, "You're gonna be in. We're gonna interview other people, but I really like you, and I really like the fact that you got into entrepreneurship, because I think in companies it's really important to have people that know to think outside the box." So when he told me that, I was like, "Oh, this is actually interesting, because it's not it's not something you would necessarily, sell to people, to the people that are interviewing you, that you're into entrepreneurship, especially when you want to get into corporate." But he actually liked it. It was a thing that really clicked for him, and so that's how I got the internship. It was for 4 months. Then during those 4 months, basically I sold skills that I didn't have. So the first 2 weeks I had my butt on fire. So I really had to push a lot to learn everything, but I managed to learn everything. I basically helped them optimize the entire resource capacity planning for the resources that are allocated to certain type of projects. And they were really happy about my work. So they extended me for another 4 months. At the end of the other 4 months, they re-extended me for another 4 months, and again, and that's how I got here. And then I took the decision that this would be my last 4 months with them, as I want to go full-time with entrepreneurship.
That's actually the next thing that I wanted to ask you. Like, how have you been managing, like working on both things and trying to have good performance in both?
So actually, it's a bit hard, I'm not gonna lie, especially when I still had university plus the internship plus the entrepreneurship. That was a lot. But now that I just have the internship and my business, I'm really lucky because I am remote. So remote, you know how it works, right? It's less, you have a bit more time. Let's call it that way. You have plenty of time actually when you're at home. Because they give you your tasks, and then you're pretty much on your own to as long as you do them, it's fine. So basically what I like to do is I wake up really early in the morning, like really early. I first train, then before 9 a.m. I'm gonna work on my business. From 9 to 11 I'm gonna take 2 hours to work on the internship. It's going to be enough for me to do the tasks they ask me, and then all that I'm gonna work on my business, and also with the client I currently have with my business. Because right now that's a bit my challenge, because I have I onboarded clients, and it's a lot of work. So I have to fulfill the service, and in parallel work on the business. So it's I'm trying to balance all of that, but it takes a lot of time. But I'd say the internship, the good thing, it's remote, so 2 hours a day, and I can manage to do the tasks for the day.
Okay, so you've got like a very established daily organization to be able to actually manage everything. And one important point about like remote working is that you do have like more time, in the sense that like you are not stuck in a place, in a specific place that you need to go to, and so you don't need to like move around
Absolutely.
like for hours within one
Absolutely.
day. But that also provides space for either like working more, or optimizing your work, or like really just being able to relax and to recover, because that's an important point too. So like I was telling you that earlier today I was recording a podcast with a triathlete, and so he's very interesting. He's trying to, well, he's on the path to complete all the Ironmans on Earth. So right now he's done 2, and he's still got 37 to go. So I mean, yeah, it's a lot. But like we were talking about recovery and like the importance of how that allows you to stay as a high performer. And like again, with remote working, I think that that's an advantage that you have, because you can like keep doing everything while still like not losing your sanity, or like staying healthy enough, or also just enjoying your time with friends, family, whoever. Now I want to get into like specific details about your business, and just one like parenthesis for people listening. I want you to like keep the idea in mind that what the conversation that we are having is focused on really like trying to understand how to merge passion and tools and new existing tools, so like in this case AI, to build like valuable things, which is basically what you have been doing. So like I was going through your webpage and I saw that there are services that you offer are data integration, AI integration, expert consulting, fast and easy setup of like the strategy that you create, smart dashboards, and predictive analysis. I would like you to get into these. So this might be a little technical for people listening, but still like there's something to learn, in the sense that this is a process that you created out of like merging passion and like a tool, which is AI. So yeah, can you get into those, and like into how your service is for someone who hires?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing, keep in mind first of all that the website that you saw is accurate, of course, but it was not. It does not reflect when I niched down into the trucking industry. So this website, as you see, it was more when I had my company and I was doing like custom solutions for cases to cases, but it was always kind of the same framework. Usually, how it works is there's in the service there's a consulting part where let's say I onboarded a client. Okay, the first part is going to be consulting part. I want to understand how they generate their revenue, how they make their money, what is the current pain points they're having, etc., etc. I need to understand everything about how they operate, the different teams, what they do, how they operate. Is it project based? How they do resource allocation to the different projects, because when it's a project-based company, which is most of the companies I target with this service, they have a bunch of people with different skills, and they need to allocate them to a lot of projects, but in an effective way, so that they don't lose time or money, and they can deliver on time and don't go, over the budget, etc., etc. So that's going to be the first part. The first part is going to be consulting, understanding all the processes, the workflow. So then you're gonna do, I'm gonna do a reflection on my side. Okay, that's in terms of business. How do I translate it in terms of data? The next part is still consulting, understanding their current infrastructure, their current automations, their current data processes, and seeing, okay, where are they standing at now? What could be enhanced? And what is already good, and also, do they have all the data they need, or do they need to collect more about this or that? Once that is done, I have all the informations I need to design the data infrastructure. What I mean by data infrastructure, it's simply how I do it in my business. You have data from different parts, right? You're going to have data from finance, data from operations, data from pretty much across everything in your business, right? I'm going to take a really simple example here with e-commerce, for instance, so that most of the people will understand. In e-commerce, you're going to have data related to the marketing spending, right? Which is, you have dashboards that are integrated, if you're running Facebook ads or stuff like that. But it's in different part of, the different system. It's not necessarily always related together. So you're going to have informations about marketing, informations about your Shopify sales, so revenue, okay? You're going to have data also about, the people, the people that work for you in the company. You're going to have data on pretty much different things. And for me, the goal after is going to be to integrate with all those different systems, right? To pull all the data in what it's called a data lake. It's basically a centralized place on the cloud where you're going to have all your data sitting together and tagged in the right way. But it's across all the different systems. You take all the company's systems, all the data centralized into a data lake. The next step, once you have all that data in the same place, it's going to be, okay, they have this data. In the systems, they can, you have already dashboards that are showing you. If you go into you have Facebook ads management, you see the dashboard about how much you're spending a day, etc., etc. But the interesting part about the service is to doing what's called cross relations. So you have all the data from these different parts, you centralize them into a data lake, and then you see how they correlate with each other. Because the data from the revenue side is going to impact the data from the marketing side, is going to impact the data from another revenue, from another part, sorry. So my job is to really understand, okay, business side, what is important? Okay, that's the different data. I collect everything together and I see how they make sense together. That's called the data molding part. Once that is done, I don't want to get too much technical, otherwise it's going to be not everyone will understand, but I do cross relations with the data to see how they interact with other systems, and then what I do is simply dashboards, so that the people that are not technical, they see the relationships between the different systems without having to be technical, without having to write custom code. It's already done in the all the data transformation and integration that I did before, and I simply represent everything in dashboards so that it's visually appealing and you get an understanding exactly about what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get into two parts now. The first one, which is like a follow-up question to this, and then the other one, which is like, what is next after that? So the first one, I think that's something that happens a lot when trying to make relations. Even if you are not trying to use math a lot, even if you are just trying to use logic to think how something will impact another thing, which is more or less like systems thinking. Something that happens there is like many times you think everything or many things based on assumptions. So like assuming that some area will have an impact on other because some logic might make sense. But then like in the real world, that might not be that way, and there might be some like other factor that influences this relationship. So like one question here is like, what's your process for like really identifying if something has a direct relation to one thing or not, or if it's just like a connection but not really like direct relation? I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology.
I understand your question.
So that's one thing, and then like after that we'll talk about like what goes next, like how you implement those for the companies. But let's first stick to the other one.
Absolutely. So when I say cross relationships, most of the time I understand that there's evidence correlation between the data. So for me, there's not that part of, do I have to test, is there even correlation between the data, right? But that you can do it as well. It's called, you do it because in math we call it through a statistical test. You can test relationships, linear relationships between data points. You can test non-linear relationships between data points, etc., etc. But in data analytics, and the way I do it, and in business intelligence, reporting, etc., dashboards, it's much more simple. Because what you have is different tables of data, but every time you have a common key that relates all the tables together, right? So let's say you have, I'm going to take an example for trucking companies, okay? You're going to have a table with the drivers, okay? The drivers' names, what truck they drive, at what time, etc., for how many miles, etc. On another table, you're going to have, per truck, how much revenue did that truck generate, how much miles has it driven, the maintenance fixes that needs to be done on that truck, etc., etc. If you link both by the truck, you can get information on the driver relating to the truck with the fuel, the miles driven, and the maintenance. And all these data come, I'm not sure it's a clear example. I'm going to have to maybe try to find a clearer one. But what I'm trying to say is, let's say you have a table about drivers and another table about like the fuel consumption, okay? You're going to be able to link all of that and see how it correlates. So you're going to be able to identify, okay, this driver is actually in my company, the driver that's making the most amount of money for me. He drives this much mile every month. On the other hand, this driver doesn't drive a lot of miles, so he's underutilized in my company. I can see it. But in terms of its expenses, it's still high. So there I can see a problem by relating the data, and I try to, since I have the data, I'm able to pinpoint that kind of problems, which you see that problem in the revenue, right? Because you see like an increase or a decrease of the revenue, but you cannot know in terms of data what's happening. So the fact that you're relating everything together, you understand, okay, it comes from this truck with this driver especially, because let's say he spent too much time idling. Idling in trucking space, it means simply the truck's engine is on, but the truck is not moving. Okay, so it's either going during paperwork, during the loading of the work, but this is actually the driver is still consuming fuel, so he might be consuming a lot of fuel for a load that is not, he hasn't driven that many miles. So with data, you can see those problems and then be like, okay, hey driver, I see that you did a drive with a truck for let's say 10 kilometers, but it cost me this much amount of money, which doesn't make any sense because actually you spent 3 hours and 30 minutes at the gas station with the truck's engine on, and it made me lose a bunch of money. Without that analytics and without doing these cross relationships between all the data points, you wouldn't be able to spot that, right? So that's the main aspect of cross relationships.
No, yeah, makes sense, especially regarding like the logical connection you make to things, because like one thing is to have the whole like list of data about something happening, and then another thing like giving a meaning to it. And I think that was more of that is more what we have been talking about, because like if that's where you need to use like logic and really just thinking about the specific situation. Absolutely. To understand what that means. Like in your case, in this case, as you were saying, it doesn't make sense for a driver who's like driving for only 2 hours to be using as much fuel as someone who is driving like 4 hours. But there might be some issues with like traffic or with like the truck being turned on or like things like that. So yeah, I understand that more. So it's like for using data in that way, it's important to like then use logic to give meaning to it. That's also like kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely. Okay. And I was going to say, understanding this cross relationship thing is really important, because you have different relationships between the data. You have what's called one-to-one, one-to-many, etc. I'm not going to get into that, but to give you a simpler example, for instance, a lot of the surveys that are made, for instance, which ethnicity in certain university are getting the better grades or stuff like that, it's all cross relationships between different data points, right? Because you're going to have the data about the student, okay? You're going to have the student ID, his major, his minor, his program, and where is he coming from, nationality, right? And also his students, okay, his professors. You're gonna have a list of professors that are associated with the student key, right? On the other hand, you're gonna have a professor key, right? Professor key, he's going to have a topic that he's teaching, different evaluations, homeworks, grades, assigned to different students. By linking all this data together, that's where you can understand, okay, these professors are getting the most results in terms of grades. You see also on this specific test, you link it with the student table with the nationality. This is the nationality that ranks higher in mathematical test than in other topics. So it's really between like these cross relationships of data really helps you understand a problem that you may be able to see, but you might not be able to explain it. And that was my point with the tracking example 5 minutes ago.
Okay. One more question on this topic. How do you usually avoid bias or giving an erroneous meaning to one relation? Because like again, what happens a lot, specifically especially with like statistics, with like demographic statistics or things like that, is that it's biased in some way. It's just showing like one part of the reality. In your case, it's important not to have it that way, because that means that you are not like actually solving the problem for the company, and they are either losing money or leaving money on the table. So like in this case, it's very important not to be biased and to have like the full real picture. How would you usually avoid that bias?
Actually, so that's a great question, actually, because it's something that when you can show the right data, but that will make sense only in one way. The thing, as you were saying, is biased, and to the company, they're going to be like, oh shoot, we're losing this much money because of this, but actually no, it's because you're only seeing one side of the data. So really the first step that I was trying to explain at the beginning is going to be the consulting part. really understand the business need. That's going to be the first step, because if you do not understand the business need, you're going to get to that biased cross relationships that you're going to make between the data that are right. They are true, but they do not serve the purpose to the business. And so that's where it's going to be biased. So the first part is really on the consulting side, really understanding, okay, what is the business need right now? And then it's also understanding, okay, what data do I have? Is it clean data? Because that's something that I do as well. You have to make sure that you have clean data. It's the right data type. I don't have too much empty data cells. It makes sense. I can be 99% sure that the data I'm showing is accurate. So that comes in the more data engineering part. You have to see the data you have. First of all, you see if it makes sense in terms of the data business, right? Because let's say you have expenses. Let's take the example of trucking once again. You see the fuel cost, right? So you take the fuel cost during detention, during idling. You see also the fuel cost during simply being stuck in traffic. You see also but you don't see, I'm going to say another cost. There's another cost that is not identified. Then if you say, okay, you're losing this much amount of money because of that, that's not true, because you didn't take in account all the other categories where you could be leaking cash with fuel consumption, right? So it's really being able to take the entire picture, the whole picture, the big picture, and from that, you show the data based. I'm trying to frame it in a way where I don't sound retarded and it's not too technical, but yeah.
You don't sound retarded. Maybe it's a little technical for some people, but like that's
okay. But yeah, I was going to say cross relationships. It can be biased, so that's why you really have to understand on the consulting part. Okay, what is the business need, and then coming up with clear data. All right, you do that through what's called ETL. ETL pipelines, where you extract the data from the data source, you transform it, you clean it, you make sure it's ready for analytics, and then you load it into the system. Once you have that and you understand the business need, then you can do cross relationships, and it will make sense to the data, to the business, as long as you show the KPIs that actually matter. So that's the two important parts. It's really understanding the business, having the right data, complete data, clean data, and then you won't have that bias problem you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. No, sure, and then specifically on that last part of like on having like clear KPIs using the analytics, like to be able to effectively craft those for the specific company, you need to understand like the whole context, which is what you were saying about like the importance of the consulting stage, to be able to really understand fully the industry, the client, like how the business works, how that microeconomy is working, and what's like inside of it. Let's now get into like what a client experiences afterwards. So they go through the consulting stage, then you perform like the whole data analysis part, and what's next?
So what's next? Once I do the consulting part, then I do all the data engineering, preparing the data for analytics. Then I'm gonna provide, and that's also part of the reasoning I have to do on my end. I'm gonna get to what KPIs do I need to show that's gonna make sense to them. Once I do that, I check with them and different stakeholders of the business to see, okay, these KPIs, do they matter to you? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, perfect. I keep them. Then I provide the dashboards, as I was saying. This is the business intelligence solution. So you're going to be online, arrive, and see a bunch of different dashboards showcasing data regarding your department. And then based on that, you have two options in my service. Either it's done. So as long as you have the dashboard showing the right KPIs, you're going to be able to take much more efficient decisions and data-driven decisions, right? Because in these kind of businesses, it's like big businesses, the clients are signed, they're making over 10 million a year. So they have a lot of employees. It's project-based. They have a lot of projects to track, resource to allocate. So once they have this clarity and this control over everything that's happening in their business, they can take much better decisions. They can know, okay, this resource is going to be better to allocate there rather than there, because otherwise here he's gonna be overused, and this is going to lead to optimization and the reduction of the cost. So that's on the business side. It's really about that, making much better decisions and being able to optimize your business so that you have less cost. But the thing that I'm talking right now is more to correlate with what you were saying about what was on my website, which was not when I niched down, because now that I've actually niched down, I came up with a step further in the service where I do provide strategies to act on the data they collect. Because what I realized is that, okay, once you have the data, it's nice, but if you still take the wrong decisions, then you're not going to impact the business, okay? If you can see the data, but you don't take action on the data, nothing is going to happen inside your business. So what I provided a step further is like custom strategies to act on the data that I'm showing you right now and that I prepared for you. And so then we can be able also to track, after implementing the strategies that I told you to implement, what has been the change inside the business, because I'm tracking everything, right? I have the entire control over the business in terms of visibility. So I can tell you exactly after that day starting implementing my strategy, on day 1 and after day 30, what happened exactly on every department. And that gives me as well much more credibility, So that's a step further that I went, and that step that I took further, it was especially niching down with tracking companies.
Sure, no, and that credibility comes from actually providing measurable results, which is part of the whole process. Since the very beginning, you are focusing on things that can be measured. Yeah. So that's a very intelligent thing to do. Now, I would like to get into some things that are a little bit more general than more people who are not into the technical stuff can understand, which is one of the takeaways from the last things that you said is that like you have your whole service set up and then you started to niche down into one specific type of client. And so that's something valuable because you have been able to provide a more custom solution for those clients. How did you find this very specific niche, and specifically what would you say is something that people in business should consider for trying to find that very like niche client and problem and solution that they can offer?
Absolutely. So this was actually something because we talked about it a bit in the beginning of the call, and I was like, I want to say something about it because it's really interesting. Because I think that so I'm gonna get into why I choose to do that and how I found out. But what I wanted to tell first is that most of the people today, how it works is they develop a skill, and then they try to monetize that skill through the agency model. That's I would say that most of the cases it works like that. When you have, for instance, you have the automation agency. Most of my friends, they mastered one skill that they master really well, and then they monetize it through the agency model. So I'm thinking about all the people that are going out of university. They have great technical skills that sets them apart from most of the people that don't, get a degree, etc. So these people, it's not to. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, But for instance, like dropshipping, SMMA, those kind of things, it's I would say it's less technical, to get into. That's why there's much more competition as well. But I think that people that are going out of the degree, because most of the people are saying like, fuck the degrees, it's useless, etc., etc. I don't think that at all. I think if you make something out of it, it can really be useful. And most of the people going out of a bachelor, they all have technical skills that they could really monetize through the agency model. But then most of the people, what they don't like about the agency model is that it's project-based and it takes a lot of time to fulfill, and when you try to delegate, it costs you money, right? Unless you hire offshore, but you never know about the quality of the service you're going to fulfill, and it's a different time zone. It's much complicated, right? So what I'm trying to do with my business right now is I was like, okay, I have this skill, which is data analytics. And I don't want to do what I'm doing right now, but I had to do it at the beginning, right? Which is having to waste many hours on fulfilling, where you actually realize, well, okay, I'm still working for someone, and it still takes a lot of time and a lot of effort because each of the new clients is going to be custom. So what you need to do, and I think this is really the future of the agency model, is you test your service and your technical skills on 5 different customers, right? On 5 different clients. Once that is done, you get an understanding, okay, what's really impactful, what's really useful, what I could add as well, or what could I remove. Based on that, it's to tend to go to what I call a productized service. So a productized service is basically you from the experience you got and applying your skill and solving business problems that are most of the time pretty common, you get an understanding of, okay, what I have to do in most of the cases, and based on that, you build a productized service. And that's what I did with Visual Flow Analytics actually last week. I productized my entire service. So that now that I've niched down, also it implies that you have to niche down to productize your service, right? Because it's basically it's the SaaS equivalent in the agency model, where you have one thing that you built. I plug it into different companies, but I don't need to do the same amount of custom work every time as if I was, starting from scratch a solution. So I just wanted to say that because I think that was really important. Is I just wanted to let you know that's where I'm heading at as well right now, is really productized services. I think this is really great because it gives me so much. Because now that I've productized my service, before having productized my service, I could have at most 2 clients by myself. Now that I have productized my service, I could have between 15 to 20 clients at the same time just for me. No need to hire a new one. So it increases your profit margins, it increases everything in your business. So I think it's really important to tend to that. But before going to that, you still need to do some custom solutions for clients to be able to understand, okay, what can I productize and what can I add or remove, to the service. And maybe remind me the first question. I'm sorry because I talked about that, but you had...
Oh yeah. So this is your vision, and you are doing that through focusing on trucking clients right now. So maybe in the future you'll extend to some other
Exactly.
client. And like you got to this point where you are trying to head to that, so like to productizing the service because you found your niche client, which is trucking companies. How did you identify that niche, that industry as the industry for you to start like narrowing down your service?
So I was going to say I used a lot of AI in my researches, right? Because you have all these AI tools where you can have I use Grok and ChatGPT for reasoning skills. Okay, when I really need to actually have reasoning skills to understand, okay, what is the niche that would make the more sense based on the current market's data. So I'm going to look at the data in the market about different niches. For that, I'm going to use Perplexity. So basically, I use a bunch of AI tools to really understand, okay, everything that is happening in the market right now in terms of data. And in terms of, if I can say filters, I looked for niches where there was high demand and low competition. That's the ideal, right? Whenever you're going for a niche, you want that. And so that's how I found a top 10 niches, right? I found financial institutions, but I was like, no, there's too much compliances, regulations. It's going to be hard for me. There was as well, I had these consulting companies for because I had experience in resource planning capacity for resources to project-based companies. But I was like, this is too complicated. I cannot productize it yet. And then I found tracking companies, and I was really interested. I was like, I've actually never thought about trucking businesses. When I see a truck on the road, I'm like, okay, it's transporting goods, food, whatever, But I never thought about the business as in. And so I did my researches in North America. The trucking business, the market share is $860 billion, which is huge, right? And I had no idea. Most of the things that we currently consume or buy, they came by trucks. So all these trucking companies, they have a lot of work. They are doing plenty of businesses, generating a bunch of cash. But unfortunately, with the fuel expenses, the route optimization that is not always optimal, they have really low profit margins. So when I found out that with Perplexity, just asking questions about different niches, I do this and that with AI and analytics. Who do you think I could help? He told me a bunch of things, so I started digging into each. And after, I had only 3. So tracking companies, the consulting one, and there was the finance one. And I was like, okay, trucking makes actually a lot of sense. I think I could really help that industry. So then I had to learn a lot about the business because I didn't know anything about how a trucking business was operating. And that's how I got into niching down to trucking companies. It was mainly due to AI. If AI wasn't there, I would have never niched down to trucking businesses because I had no idea it even existed,
How did you start learning the specifics of the trucking business? Did you use also like AI and online resources, or you really just like talking with people who work in that industry?
Both. I use YouTube to understand because there are people giving tips how to start a trekking company in 2025. So I was like, okay, if I want to deliver a proper service to a company, I need to be able to start the company I'm gonna help tomorrow. You know, like understand exactly how they make their money. Like if I were to open that business in that niche, I had to do it perfectly. So I really went online with that mindset. So I watched a lot of videos on YouTube, asking a lot of questions with AI, and also with connecting with people in the industry, not necessarily trying to sell them something, but presenting them the idea and to see also if it's something they've observed, themselves working in the industry. Is there a need for that? So I did all, and there was actually indeed a need for that. And so that's why I went all in. I spent 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks crafting the offer, really niching down, and also already thinking about productizing the service, because for me, really the end goal. I don't like being on the. I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy being on the operations side, but the more I'm on operations, the less I can work on the business. And for me as a founder, it's the most important thing I have to do during my days, to work on the business, the systems, the product, etc., etc. And I cannot do that full time if I'm also delivering the solution. So that's why I went niche down tracking companies, because there's a huge need, and also I can productize the service.
Sure. Now let's talk about let's get into the productizing a service topic. One or the first way that comes to my mind to actually be able to do that, but I guess that's still like having it be an agency, is like really hiring people to do the job for you. But like I think that the idea here to really make it a productized service is to use technology to automate all of the processes that you would be like performing yourself. Absolutely. Right? But how does productizing a service look like in your case or in other cases that you've
Absolutely. seen? So I'm gonna say in my case, because that's the thing I was able to identify. In my service for now, I have to build dashboards all the time. I have to go in the company, take the data, and build the dashboards. Go into the company, take the data, transform it, and build the dashboards. But they all have the same data once you niche down. They all use the same softwares. They all have the same kind of data. So I was like, I can find a way to automate that, so that as soon as I onboard them, they plug it into my system automatically goes, take the data, and integrates it with the dashboard I've already built many times. I don't want to build it every time from scratch. I just want the dashboard. So it's basically code, right? That's going to get their data, put it into the dashboard, so that the dashboard is nothing. As soon as the data of the client arrives, boom, you see the data popping on the dashboard, because in the trucking industry, they all have a TMS, a transport management software. They all have ELD to track the logging devices of the trucks. They all have all these kind of common data types, if I can call them so. And so I was like, okay, really, this can be prioritized. And my next point was going to be also, I think that it's a great way also to go into SaaS after. Usually, it's really nice if you want to go into a SaaS, to start with the agency model. You test the service, then you productize it, and then you SaaSify it. So SaaSify is complete automation, right? And right now in the productized service is like semi-automation. And so I think that's a really sweet spot if you want to get more market validation, to then build a complete SaaS, where you're going to have all, from the agency model and the productized service, you're going to have all the information you need to build the complete SaaS. So that's where I'm heading to next step.
Cool. And I guess that for that point, you would actually need to... the things that... I was going to say that you would actually need to start building up your team, which you probably will. But still, with technology and AI, like you could still get ahead with many of those things without needing to include anyone. Like what 10 years ago or even 5 years ago in 2020 in the pandemic would have required you to take at least 2 people to jump into your team 100%. To be able to do that. Like you can do right now on your own until the SaaS part. Maybe in that part you actually need to hire someone who has more experience doing that or setting those things up. But that's really interesting, and that's a really powerful tool that we have right now. And with this, I want to get into something that is even a little bit more general, that more people can relate to, which is what I was telling you about, that I wanted to dive into how you have merged emerging tools. So in this case, as we have been saying, AI, and your passion and skills, because like you have passion and skills for that. You have put in the work, and you also have some ease for it, and you have like developed that. But yeah, like how has it been for you, like personally, like your experience, and like how has it felt? How has it been for you to be able to really merge those two things, like these new technologies that are existing, and also like your passion for math?
Absolutely. So I'm going to say, first of all, you need to know yourself really well, right? I think the first step is like really knowing your strength, your weaknesses, and really doing this introspection within yourself to know, okay, that's my strength, those are my weaknesses. Based on that, what do I like, and and also what do I know, right? And based on that, you try to find the sweet spot between stuff you like to do and stuff you're good at, which are not necessarily always linked, but you can always find a sweet spot like in the middle. And based on that, you need to service that and to monetize that through the model. Not necessarily the model agency, right? Because if you have coding skills, you can already start a SaaS model. But for me, it was reading, okay, I really like online businesses, right? Because it was this whole thing, this whole hype on YouTube about the online business. So I've really digged into the topic. So I documented, I searched a lot of information about the topic. And was like, I'm really into the online business, right? Having this, location freedom, etc., etc. It sounds general, I know, but it's true. Like, it's really something I'm looking to have in my life. And I was like, okay, I also, the thing is, I love math, but I cannot monetize math alone, right? You don't build a business if you just know how to solve equations, etc. So I was like, okay, what else do I know how to do? It was like a bit of coding. So I was okay, data analytics would be a great option for me because it's really like understanding, the business. Then it's a bit of coding and math and understanding the business need to translate all of that into a data solution. So for me, it was really the business model I wanted to go for. And so yeah, man, that's how I got into where I am today. And also the most important thing is to start somewhere, right? Because I started with web development, right? But if I didn't start with web development, I would have gotten into data analytics, because I would still think, oh, I need to start web development. I need to start web development. And until you actually start, you don't know what you really, what's really gonna work out and what's not gonna work out. So I would say, yeah, if you really want, you have to understand yourself, know your strength. Okay, I don't know if you're in high school, you can definitely see between your classmates, okay, I have this that they don't have, I enjoy doing this. I could definitely do something about it. And then, man, it's simply starting out, even if it's not the perfect solution, or it's really, for me, it took me a lot of time because I like to get things done perfectly. But in business, it's really not how it works. So for me, I really had to do the shift as, volume and just getting started. Instead of perfection. So really that was it for me.
Now, talking about Alex Hormozy, as we were saying before, I think he has he has many posts, but like some of them in which he says like volume negates luck. And I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like if you do something like enough times and like really just over and over and over and over, you'll start like building that identity, building the skill. Absolutely. Building the results, like really putting in the work is what helps for this. You said that you that you experienced this shift in math from like being told that you were not good at it at all when you were young, and then like actually getting into it with like a lot of focus and energy, and then becoming like really good at it. I think that's something that has happened, or that will happen to a lot of people, like having something that they maybe sort of enjoy, but then that they are told that they're not good at, and that they then become good at. What do you think about that case, like when that happens to people?
I think it's really important to have perseverance, and also to have a lot of ego. If someone tells you, oh, you're not good at something but you really like it, you have to get your ego hurt. You have to have some ego to be like, okay, no, this person doesn't have the right, cannot tell me that I'm not good at something I like, so I'm gonna work my ass off to prove him wrong. And so for me, that was exactly the case, right? Because I had like really, really bad grades in math. Every time the teacher asked me something, I would answer something stupid, like it would make people laugh and perceive you as someone dumb. And I really didn't like the idea. So that's why I took a whole summer. And the thing is, it only took one summer, right? When people think about it, sometimes they think it's going to take 10 years. It's not true. If you lock in for 2 months, in that case, it was necessary for me and it was enough. But in most cases, for a business, I'm going to say 6 months. Honestly, 6 months. A service-based business where you already know that you have more technical skills than most of the people. Or even if you still need to learn, right? Because I'm going to tell you something after, it's that I still need to learn a lot of technical stuff. But I want to get that just after. But yeah, it's really having the perseverance and knowing that 6 months is nothing. If you lock in for 6 months, you can have a profitable business. And after, you really get to do something you enjoy. And it honestly feels amazing. And what I wanted to say right after is also, you don't have to be perfect with your technical skills. You just have to have enough understanding on how to structure an offer and understand how these skills could solve a problem's business put that way or that way, and then market it. For me, I'm big on selling before building. I always sell a service before actually having the technical skills, because I'm like, if I spend time, developing those skills, and at the end no one fucking wants them, there's no point in me of doing that, right? So I'd rather first sell and then build. And that's what I did with the previous company I signed.
With the internship.
Yeah, and even the internship.
Well, with the internship.
Yeah, exactly. Is I usually sell something that I kind of know, but not necessarily well enough. I first sell it. Once it's sold, I'm like, okay, now I need to get to work, and I have 2 weeks to get started and to learn a lot of things. It's going to be a lot, but as long as I know that there's demand for what I want to sell, boom, I have the motivation to work and actually, acquire better skills in that specific domain.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, and I think that one important point here is also not to. I guess it sounds kind of cliche, but like not being afraid to mess things up like hugely, because like two things here. In the case of like not being really good at something or messing things up in that topic, as you were saying, like having some ego or having some emotional like hurts or whatever that leads you like to that serves as fuel or motivation for you to keep going. Like setbacks and like not doing something good or like really just messing things up can lead you to like be in this place where you're trying like to have this comeback. So that's one part. And like in addition to that, which is kind of contradictory, but like I would still say that for some things it is important like not to exceed your limits. So it's not like right now you're trying to offer someone to be a surgeon, because that's like something that you could not do. So it's like really, I mean, that's an extreme case, but it's like knowing your limit in some way. Absolutely. Like trying to go just a few steps beyond, not necessarily like one whole kilometer beyond into something that you don't even know how 100%, to do. Right?
100%. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And actually, I wouldn't recommend doing this to a lot of people, but I just know it works for me, right? But sometimes building something and you do market study, market validation with other people in the industry, and you're like, okay, I need to develop these skills, and it's sure or almost sure that I'm going to be able to sell them, then that's good, do it. But for me, the way I work is usually I sell something, but I have the confidence in that, I'm confident I'm going to be able to acquire those skills and to develop the full solution. But I have to say that it's definitely more stressful when you sell something you don't know yet. That's a bit stressful, right? But for me, since I have a bit of ADHD, I have a hard time sometimes, I have a hard time usually putting myself to work, which is kind of weird, especially if you want to get into entrepreneurship. But I figure out for me, if I sell something and I get money first and then I learn the skill, it definitely works for me. I'm able to learn fast. It's quick, efficient, and then I acquire the skill and I'm able to deliver. So for me, it was the way I found the trick I found for myself. To be able to to actually not necessarily have to do all the work before the market validation, the connecting with a lot of people, etc., testing. So for me, that's what worked.
No, sure, yeah, and like that, like the point right there is to know yourself and to know what works for you. Because maybe for someone who is a little bit more organized or who is not very confident that they can acquire a skill very quickly, or someone who knows that that's not their way for them is like, okay, maybe you should try another way. But like the important part there is to like really getting started with something and finding what works for you. Then like I would like to now dive into this other like part, like to the second part of of what I told you about, like merging a passion and like existing emerging tools. So like we got into like the passion part. Right now, let's get into the tools. So like I guess the biggest and most obvious one right now is AI, and really just leveraging like large language models and like AI agents and ChatGPT and all this like tools that exist. But like what else would you say is like well, now first of all, what are your thoughts on that? Because like I guess that's like the important tool right now. Because like in each industry or niche or area or whatever, like each person might find some other existing tools, but like the general one or the global one is like AI for now.
I agree with you. But I was going to say, you're talking about passion, and I think one of the main tool also to start a business from your passion is going to be social media. I mean, if you're someone that likes to play guitar or piano, or you like cooking, or whatever, social media is a great place. Even for online businesses, social media has taken a big place. But once again, there's a lot of AI involved in the way you can build a business on social media, such as the automations in the comment section when comment content and I'll send you a free PDF or whatever. These are all automations. But I think as you said it, AI is a big part of I mean, it's really general. There's a lot of different tools in AI, but for me, I've used a bunch of tools in the AI space, and I have to say, whatever it's marketing or operations or simple automations from Google Spreadsheets, generating leads, enriching leads, sending custom emails, custom outreach. Man, AI has been life changing, and I think it's definitely one of the greatest tools. And you have so much out there. You have almost too much out there. Sometimes you don't know which one to use, right? But yeah, for me, I've even tried marketing with doing ads with AI generated videos. It was incredible because for me, my English, I have a strong accent, and when I was marketing my products on YouTube, I tried to run a YouTube ad once. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to put someone's, an American voice, perfect voice. So I found this AI avatar lady that I put in a loom, sharing my screen at the same time. She was talking, saying my whole script better than me. I didn't have to learn my script by heart or whatever. Man, I think it really changed everything for me. It's in terms of speed and efficiency, AI it's getting to another level right now.
No, and especially that aspect that is like the one that people see the most, which is like how fast you can do things with that. So I was sharing with you that right now I'm building a travel app, and like even though I do know how to code in some languages, like still it is better to have the AI code the app and code the features rather than have me like do all of that stuff, because it's like a way that you can do everything like faster and even like test more efficiently. It's like saving time, saving resources. But still, with that, I would say that one important thing or method to keep while using these tools is really try to keep the rational and human part behind it in every step, because otherwise, like you start. Yes, it might like make everything faster and sometimes more effective, but still you might lose like some details. You might not understand what is happening fully, and still like it's not important to know everything that is happening, but at least like the details of each area, because otherwise like you are not in a place where you can really use the AI very efficiently. So it's like having many tools in an actual tool belt, and just knowing how to use a hammer. But then if you want to use like a screwdriver or like whatever, and then you don't know how to use it, it's like really keeping that human and rational part behind it to really leverage it the most. Let's have one last question on this topic before wrapping up the conversation,
absolutely.
Which is getting back into how you run your business. How are you using AI for the whole thing? I guess that like one one of the most obvious things would be like really just performing the mathematical part, like really the analytics. But like, yeah, how are you using that?
So that's an interesting question actually, because I'm using AI in both my service and in my business as well. So everything in my, so I use AI automations inside my service as part of my service, my offer, and as well as to automate things in my business. But I'm gonna talk a bit about both, because in the business really interesting, because I found, I use NA10 a lot. I was able to create workflows where I'm able to generate hundreds of leads really easily through a workflow using different softwares, LinkedIn, etc., where I'm able to each week pull in into a Google spreadsheet leads from my industry, so really a filter leads with a sales navigator, which is the best B2B filter. But anyways, generate leads, their email addresses, their phone numbers, plus a custom GPT search about the guy's name, his company, and based on my offer, how can I pitch him perfectly? So when I arrive on that spreadsheet every beginning of the week, I'm like, okay, I see Alexandre Dumont. He's working at SpaceX. I'm just giving an example, right? And I have the custom GPT where search where it's telling me, okay, this guy is working there. It's a company that do this and that and that. Based on your offer, you could help them with that. So then either I'm gonna do cold call, I'm gonna call the guy, I'm gonna say, okay, and you just use the GPT search. Yeah, based on that, yeah, man, are you interested in taking a call or whatever? Many operates. It's just in terms of speed, it's crazy. But then I also use AI a lot in my business as part of the service, and also in all the research part, right? So when I crafted my offer, I told the AI, you are Alex Hormozy. I'm gonna give you all the tools, but you need to craft my offer as if you were Alex Hormozy. It crafted it perfectly. And then as part of my service, I use some AI automations, but I do also still a lot of custom predictive models, right? So I code in Python, but using AI, once again, AI is everywhere, man. But but I code some predictive models where I still have to think about it. Okay, what are the parameters I need to take into account, right? I worked for an AI company. I needed for them to build a predictive model that was able to tell you how much energy your building is going to consume based on atmospheric parameters like the pressure, the UV, etc., etc. So that's the kind of thing where I cannot do everything in ChatGPT. I still have to use a bit of my brain, but most of it I still use I use AI in the researching part inside the business as part of the offer, pretty much everywhere.
No, yeah, this is a good example of really how to use AI to optimize the parts of the business that are not very productive in alignment to what your skills are. So your skills are in math and in like really relating to customers, not necessarily in finding customers. And that's like the part where you optimize that to have like the AI do that for you, which is I think a good way to also do this as you're running a solo business, right? You're like it's basically for now.
Yeah, for now it's basically I've been interviewing a bunch of contractors, and I think for now I'm just gonna on certain projects sometimes ask for the expertise of some contractors to help me on a project. But no employees for the moment. But man, I wanted to ask you a question also, because you when we talked about AI, don't you think also that AI sometimes it removed a lot of our brain capacity, brain computer, or computer part, like if we're talking in terms of GPU, what we have inside the brain, like for me, I had the realization actually last year. I was like, man, I became dumber than I was 2 years ago, but it was crazy. And sometimes I actually realize that when I use my brain, I actually have a better outcome, as if, instead of using AI. Sometimes I use AI, then I think myself, and I have a better solution when I think myself than when I use AI. It's I wanted to know if it happened to you as well.
No, yeah, it's happened to me, and I'll get into those details. But like, I want to start with saying that I was reading not the actual report, but like some posts on Instagram and some like articles on the web that talked about a report by MIT where they talked about how users, so that they had some like research or some study, and in the study there were two groups, so like groups of people who used AI to basically do the whole writing for them for their academic texts, and then a group of people who were using AI to improve the things that they were
Yeah.
writing. And like I'm generalizing here, but like the conclusions were that like people who were writing their own thoughts first and like coming up with their own ideas and like really structuring them and then using AI to improve that, showed like better brain functioning than the other group of people who were like just doing that. And one of the metrics that they used to like justify this was that people who used AI for everything, like to basically do the whole thing for them, could not recall anything or just very brief sentences of the actual text or even explain those parts, while people who wrote most of it and then used AI to improve it were able to actually explain and dive into the concepts and have a better conversation. So that's one part. And yeah, one thing that I wanted to share about that, which is like, yeah, many times depending on how you use AI, it can affect your brain functioning, or your brain functioning and how your cognitive working is affecting what you do. But in my case, I would say that like I have noticed that depending on what I do. So for example, for the app that I'm building right now, we're still trying to define like very with a lot of precision what the problem is and what our solution provides and how we are covering that. But still, like I'm going through that process of like, okay, defining the problem and like the specific points, the specific components. So like using first principle thinking and like really understanding the causes and related problems and things like that. So I've been going through that process, and like I was also doing it in parallel with AI. So I basically did it in two ways, like asking AI to define the problem for me and to dive 5 levels deeper. So let's say that I have a problem with my microphone. Well, no, with podcasting, and that like a sub problem is problem with my microphone, and the sub problem of that is like the cable of my microphone, things like that. So I asked it to really try to like niche down the definition of the problem, and I did that myself, and then like the answer was better when I performed the actual thinking and went through the actual process only with my brain, only like thinking and doing it myself, and then used AI to like explore deeper levels of the problem, then having the first definition of the problem and have AI use that definition to dive deeper. So like with that I do see that like results many times, depending on what you're using AI for, are better when the thinking starts with you and then you use AI to like make that thinking faster. But still, like with the brain functioning thing, of course I do see myself many times using AI, and then like while the AI does all the thinking and all of the report,
Definitely.
I'm just like scrolling on Instagram, which is probably not a good practice, because if you are not thinking and you are also just like on Instagram scrolling through reels or watching memes or brain rot or whatever, then that's like a double negative thing, which is not good.
I agree.
but like when it's not that way, when it's like actually thinking and using AI to leverage the thinking, I think it's much better. So that's been my experience with that.
Or even just do stuff you can do with AI much faster, so that it frees time from you, so that you can focus on other tasks that requires much more of your brain, and you don't need to focus on stuff that can be done with AI easily, but you focus really on the big part, the reasoning part, where you actually have to sit and think a lot. But for me, it's same thing happen. I think it happens to everyone, but it's just good to be aware of it, so that you don't get trapped.
Sure. No, and just one more example, like regarding the last thing that you just said, is like when I have meetings with my clients, I usually record them. And what I used to do like 3 months ago was to go through the recording of the meeting and then like take notes manually, and that would take like 1 hour to do that. But then like right now what I'm doing is like really just with the recording, like uploading it to an AI transcription platform, and then I use that with a prompt in ChatGPT and Claude to provide like a synthesized version of a synthesis of the notes of the conversation. So like basically what we covered, the things we talked about, and the solutions we thought of, and then like also the next steps. And that is much more effective and leaves space for me to actually do the thinking for the later steps, which is an example of how using AI to automate or make some tasks faster can improve and give you can improve and help you have more space for thinking,
Definitely.
like in time and literally just mental space. Because otherwise, in my case, I would be tired of listening to 1 hour of recording and then having to
that's
think.
crazy. That's really smart of you to do. Just put the transcript, get the full transcription, and then put it into AI to summarize it. It's I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, now I would like to get into. So this has been a great conversation about all the topics that we've covered. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I want to get into the very last questions that I usually ask, which are 3 standard questions that I ask to all of my guests. So you can relate them to any of the topics that we've covered throughout the conversation, or to anything else that isn't related. So that's up to you. The first one is, what is a book, movie, music album, blog, whatever that you have consumed or watched recently and that you enjoyed?
That's a great question. I would say a book that I've... It's going to sound general, but it's true. And if a lot of people tell you to read that book and you listen it everywhere, then it must be a really good book and you must really get something out of it. But it's a book that has been talked about a lot. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've read it maybe 3 months ago, and it has changed a lot on my perception of bad habits that I used to have. The fact that I was not disciplined, not motivated. It was definitely one of the best self-development book in terms of impact it brought into my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read the book like 4 years ago, I think, and that helped me just like establish some basic wellness habits that I still keep until now. So like things like working out in the morning, or just having some mobility in the morning, or like doing my bed or making my bed, or like things like
Absolutely.
that. But still, like as you were saying that, I was thinking that like even though I have implemented that in the past and that has had like some influence with what I do now, I do still have like a lot of space to like correct habits that are not necessarily useful for me, which is something that I sometimes oversee, like really just not take care of some bad habits, but still like focus on like improving the good habits. So it's something that just came to my mind. So thanks for sharing that. Then the second thing is, this again can be related to any topic in the conversation, whether it's technical or not, or any other unrelated topic. And that is, what is something that you have recently learned or discovered that you think is valuable or interesting to share?
For me, it's going to be in entrepreneurship. I went to an event with a lot of successful entrepreneurs from Montreal talking. And one guy, he said that you should only hang around people you would be willing to exchange your life with. And for me, that was something, I've always heard the sentence, you are the mean of the, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, or that kind of sentence. I was like, okay. But when he said you should only hang around people where you would be willing to exchange your life with, then I was like, oh, shoot, there's actually a lot of people that I wouldn't be willing at all to exchange my life. And also in the other cases, I was like, okay, some friends that I have, for example, I'm going to give the example of Jose. I would 100% be able to exchange my life with that guy. So it brought me closer to the right person and a bit further from the wrong persons. And for me, it's really important, especially in entrepreneurship.
Now that you mentioned that, I just want to, before going to the last question, which is about coffee, I want to get into this topic of community. How did you meet Jose, and like how's your normal weekly life with him, like supporting each other?
So I met Jose through a common friend that we have. She told me yes, because I was talking about her, about entrepreneurship, what I was doing, etc. She was like, yeah, I know a guy, he's in AI automation, etc. He's a really nice guy, you should definitely talk with him. So the same evening, I reached out to him and I told him, hey, Jose, my name is William, Clementine talked to me about you. So let's go grab a coffee, man. Let's exchange. He was like, yeah, down 100%. And I saw on his Instagram page, he was into fitness, into entrepreneurship. So I was like, we're 100% going to have something to talk about. So I went to that cafe, I met him. And since day one, it was really, it clicked. He was into faith, me too, sport, entrepreneurship. So for me, it was really like, definitely I knew he was a really good person. And from then it just like started building up, and now we're seeing each other every day to work together. We go to places, public libraries, where we each take a room, we each work separately on our businesses, but it still feels like we're business partners, although we don't work in the same business. But we support each other. I think I see him pretty much every day, because we even work during weekends. So it's really nice to have someone that you can support and can support you, especially in the entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, I have had like the chance to have two friends. Yeah, it's mostly two of them, who are also like really a lot into their own, really invested into their own things. One of them who is like the one who's probably out of us three, like the one who is the most into his thing, who is studying filmmaking, and he's really like into that. And he's won like 2 awards or things like that, so he's been like improving on that. Even though we don't see each other daily or anything like that, we still support each other in many ways, and I think that that's a great thing to have, like this brotherhood in the case of men, or just like community
Definitely.
of people who you are being supported by. And that's actually something that I want to do once I move for university, like really just first thing after moving and everything, like first thing community wise, finding my people. So like finding like in your case you're Jose, like that's what I'm planning to do, like finding
Definitely.
someone like that who I can like really build with, not necessarily the same thing, but really just be like accountability partners or like work
100%.
partners.
It's a big thing, accountability. When you see someone that's pushing hard, it unconsciously you're gonna push harder. It's really subconsciously you're gonna push harder. So for me, it's really about having these kind of people in your life, where you realize, okay, it's possible, and I can make this happen. And also, I'm not that great. There's people that are doing more than me, better than me, so I need to push. And so that's why I think it's really important to have these kind of people in your life.
It is. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that about the conference that you went to. That's not something, that's not like an usual advice to hear. Then the last thing is, so I told you my podcast is called Coffee Lounge, and I am hoping that you do like coffee, because the triathlete that I interviewed today
He didn't like coffee? Wow.
So like, no, he doesn't. But what is your favorite type of coffee? That can be a coffee bean, a specific drink, anything. And what is like your favorite place for drinking coffee, or a situation in which you really enjoy drinking coffee?
Man, first of all, I love coffee. I don't understand people that don't love coffee, and I love coffee, and I need coffee also. If I don't drink coffee in my day, I'm the most retarded person ever. I look like a zombie. So I drink actually a lot of coffee. I would say during summer it's more iced latte. It sounds a bit fancy, but during summer for me it's just easier to drink. I need caffeine, so I would say I take like about 4 coffees a day. Yeah, 4 coffees a day, which is a budget sometimes when I stay at a cafe and order like 4 coffees. But anyways, yeah, I would say iced latte for me is really the way to go. In terms of beans, I'm not that much of an expert in coffee. I go more. I love the taste, but I'm not. I'm not an expert enough to be able to differentiate the taste. So I go more for the effects. So generally, yeah, I go for iced latte, because I can drink it in like in a matter of like 10 seconds. And then get the boost, and I'm ready to go.
Cool. And like a situation in which you enjoy drinking coffee, so whether that's working or maybe hanging out with Jose or anything.
Probably
like that.
Working, yeah. Whenever I'm working, I drink coffee.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's a habit for me too. Well, yeah, that's been it. I really enjoyed the conversation. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, it was all for me. Really interesting. Thanks for reaching out. It was really nice learning more about you, and also asking me all these questions. It made me reflect also on some stuff that I said, and that I didn't necessarily know. So no, it was a really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming.